Hey guys, welcome into Fantasy Football Academy 2020. I'm the Dean, and I'm here with you for my start sit for week 2. Coming at you poolside from Cajun Fitness in Rain, Louisiana. Look, guys, it's a beautiful day here in Louisiana, so I figured I'd do this outside. I'm going to turn this around and give you guys a view of what I get to see when I'm doing this. Ready? Here we go. Check it out. How awesome is that? This is a great place to be. So look, guys, I know some of y'all had a rough week, and we're going to go through my start set, and we're going to take a peek into my league of record, let you guys see what we're dealing with here at the Academy Fantasy League. So let's get into it. Look, I know Philip Rivers kind of had a down week as far as fantasy points go, but look, he threw for 363 yards. He had 1 TD. Now, if you take that, match it against Aaron Rodgers, the only difference is 3 touchdowns. Like I said before, those touchdowns, they're coming, guys. They're coming. He's playing the Vikings, same team that was going against the Packers. So, look, he's going to get his. Don't worry about it. If you need a streaming start this week, Philip Rivers is my number 1. Now, number 2, Josh Allen. If you've got him on your roster, you probably drafted him a little higher just because there was so much anticipation. If you looked at what he did last year toward the end, you could kind of see this coming. I was kind of a little leery about how he was going to mesh, how they were going to use him. But look, they're not really using his arm. They're using his legs. He's doing a little dump down passes and they're relying on the run game. So he's going against Miami. This is a plus matchup. Okay, the defense for Buffalo is going to keep Miami in check, so I don't look for that high of a score. And you're going to see I got a bunch of clouds going over, so you're going to see the light going in and out. Apologize for that, but it's what you got to deal with when you're outside, guys. Jimmy G versus the Jets. Look, we saw what the Jets were. We saw that they were absolutely horrible on both sides of the ball. So if you've got anybody playing the Jets, start him with all confidence. Now, my number 4, Joe Burrow. I know I gave my boy Nick a hard time about drafting him, and I'm still going to give him a hard time about drafting him because he could have got him a lot later. He could have gotten a much better pick in that spot than Joe Burrow. But look, it's Joe Burrow against the Browns. It's the Browns, guys. Come on, okay? If they're going to click, if they're going to have some kind of chemistry, you're going to get it here. They got the week 1 to get the butterflies out, kind of get used to who he's going to go to. We saw him poised and confident, so that's a good sign. Okay, it's kind of like Josh Allen that we saw last year. We saw that the stage isn't too big for him, and that was our concern going into week 1. How was Joe Burrow going to react to the NFL game? We got our answer, or at least a glimpse into our answer. It's still early. We still have yet to see the full potential of Joe Burrow, of what he could or couldn't be. So let's give it a couple of weeks before we actually deem this guy worthy. But in this matchup against the Browns on this week, if you've got a rough matchup with your regular starter and Joe Burrow is on your roster, go ahead and plug him in for Thursday night. Get a little early lead there in your leagues. Now, look, my sets of the week, I got 2 of them, and they're kind of big names. They're kind of guys who had really good weeks, or at least average weeks for what you expect out of these 2 guys. Number 1 is Cam Newton because he's playing the Seahawks. Did you guys see Jamal Adams? Jamal Adams was all over the place. It was crazy. He was wreaking havoc all over the field. Imagine what he's going to be locked in on Cam Newton. Okay, I'm telling you guys right now, the Seahawks have the ability to shut down the run. There's nobody that he's passing to, and they're wanting to use Cam as the Cam of old. We saw him running, saw him doing a little passing, but this is who Cam Newton is. Cam Newton is he's a rushing quarterback. That's what they want to use. I'm not saying that Cam's going to be totally shut down because you can only hope to contain him. You might not be able to stop him, okay? But the Seahawks are going to do a very good job of limiting his opportunities, okay? My next one is Deshaun Watson. He gets the Ravens, guys. The Ravens, #1 defense, week 1. And by the way, my defense in the league of records. So, Deshaun Watson, look, he's all over the place. Duke Johnson's hurt. David Johnson is actually on a sit for me as well because of the Ravens' rush defense. Yes, he might be used in the passing game, but look, if you've got a better option, go ahead with it. That leads me into my sits for the running backs. Josh Jacobs against the Saints. Look, I know Josh Jacobs had a blow-up week 1. Okay, I know he did. But listen, this is against the Saints. The Saints are a much better defense than what he had to deal with last week. Last week, weak defense that he was going up against, he was able to run all over the place. He was able to get you 34 points. He was probably your week 1 #1 running back in fantasy. As I said, David Johnson against the Ravens. I'm not looking forward to seeing David Johnson against the Ravens. I'm just not. It's not a plus matchup. I don't like it. There's a lot better options out there that you can get. On the flip side of that game, you can get J.K. Dobbins against the Texans. Look, I don't know what's going on with Baltimore's rush game. J.K. Dobbins got it on the field. They tried to, see what they had with him. And Mark Ingram was not what you drafted. Okay, so it's early. We're going to see what happens. My next one, Raheem Mostert against the Jets. Look, I already said it before with Jimmy G. If you got anybody, and I mean anybody, starting against the Jets, regardless of what day it is, what week it is, start them. Okay, until the Jets prove you otherwise, go ahead and start whoever is playing against the Jets. Joe Mixon against the Browns. Look, guys, like I said, same thing with Joe Burrow, holds true for Joe Mixon. It's against the Browns. I also like Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines against the Vikings. Look, sooner or later, they're going to click. And when we saw Nyheim Hines is going to be your roster, your waiver wire darling of the week, okay? He showed absolute poise, and he was used dramatically in the passing game, a la Austin Eckler. You guys remember what Eckler did last year with Philip Rivers as his quarterback. We all know that Philip Rivers loves the dump down. He really hasn't clicked with T.Y. Hilton, with Paris Campbell. So we're waiting for that to take off against the Vikings. Same Vikings that got torched by Aaron Rodgers. However, they also scored a little bit. So they have the capability of scoring. We saw Adam Thielen go off, okay? So we saw Dalvin Cook, do his thing. So we see these things going. And, guys, remember, it's only week 2. There are still questions to be answered. And did we get some answers in week 1? Yes. But there are still more questions to be answered. Are we leaning certain ways with certain players? Of course. And we're going to get into that when we dive into my league of record, the Academy Grads 2020. As far as tight ends, right now, I really don't have any sits of the week. It's kind of hard to gauge for tight ends because they're kind of all over the place right now. But a definite 2 starts of the week actually happened in the same game. Darren Waller against the Saints. Yes, I said Darren Waller against the Saints just for the simple reason there's nobody else. Henry Ruggs is dinged up. They have receivers dinged up all over the place for the Raiders. That's why they're using Josh Jacobs so much. But the Saints defense, they can only cover so many people. All right, guys. On the flip side of that game, Jared Cook with the Raiders. We saw Jared Cook getting his just like he did before. So we saw, I don't know if they're trying to protect Breeze, but we saw a lot of gadget plays. We saw Taysom Hill come in a lot. So that's something else to look at. If you have Breeze, you were not happy. If you had Brady, you were not happy. Okay, if you were a Saints fan, you were thrilled. If you're a Bucks fan, it's like somebody just took a needle and popped in your balloon, and you're just still whizzing all over the place. Okay, you're probably waking up with the biggest training camp hangover in history because you got to go. Even Bruce Arians said that it was strange to see Tom Brady struggle. Okay, this isn't New England. This isn't the AFC East. Okay, he's not making a living, like it was said on Twitter. He's not making a living boosting his career with Ryan Fitzpatrick as the opposite quarterback. Okay, these guys are for real. Teddy Bridgewater's no slouch. Matt Ryan is a fantasy beast. Given that Atlanta defense is not what it should be, the offense can put up plenty of points. And from what we saw from Brady and Evans and Godwin, look, I'm worried. Okay, if you are a owner of Tom Brady, if you're an owner of Mike Evans, if you're an owner of Chris Godwin, the only person that even showed a glimmer of hope was Scotty Miller. And trust me, nobody's picking this guy up. If you're going out based on one game and picking up Scotty Miller, hit me up on Twitter because you need some help. Okay? It's too early to jump the gun on guys like that because you're probably dropping somebody that you actually believed in. What do we preach here at the Academy? That's right. Trust your gut. Now, if your gut says go ahead with Scotty Miller, by all means, have at it. I myself am hands off with Scotty Miller until he can prove me otherwise. Okay? So, with that said, we're going to get into a couple of plus matchups that I like. Now, when I say plus matchups, you're like, Dean, what are you talking about? Very simply, plus matchups is where you have a really bad defense or a defense that is kind of handicapped by injuries, like my first one, the Cowboys and the Falcons. This is a plus matchup for the Falcons. Their offense, as I just said, can put up plenty of numbers. We saw Calvin Ridley. We saw Julio put up numbers. We saw Hayden Hurst start clicking with Matt Ryan, okay? We even saw Todd Gurley get a little something. So against a Cowboys defense who is reeling, I don't know what's going on in Big D, but the D is definitely standing for disappointment after week 1, okay? If you're a Cowboy fan, Chris, how you doing, buddy? You need some tissues to dry the eyes? And, yeah, I can talk stuff this week because my Washington team, and you can call them whatever you want, they will always be the Redskins to me. But my Washington team, they came back. They made adjustments in the second half. They shut down the Eagles. Yes, the Eagles are limited because of injuries, but they still gave up 17 points in the first and 0 in the second half. So, props to my boys in Washington, and Big D, watch out, because there's a new sheriff in town. Name's Dwayne Haskins. Watch him. So, with that said, we're going to move on to the Packers and Lions. Packers have a plus matchup in this one. The Lions' defense, absolutely horrible. They've lost their starting corners. Those guys got hurt in this last game for week 1. So, they're dealing with injuries. The Packers have a pissed-off Aaron Rodgers, and that's always great for fantasy, and it's always bad for the opposing team. Okay, so if you have Aaron Rodgers, like my boy Chris didn't start him, started Breeze. Why? I don't know. But apparently he's not listening to me. So, Chris, hit me up on Twitter at FantasyDean20. You can ask me all your questions there, or next time you see me at work, buddy. So, love you. You know I love messing with you. So, he's my boy. Love Chris to death. And you're going to see his team seize Cowboys when we go into the league here in a second. Sorry. Niners, Jets. Look, I've said it a couple of times already. Anybody versus the Jets is going to be a plus matchup. Then you've got the Rams versus the Eagles. Look, the Eagles got shut down second half by the Redskins. Yes, the Redskins had 8 sacks, the most since, I believe, 1947. So that was awesome. I loved watching the second half of that game. That was music to my ears. It was absolutely a joy to watch. And I loved going back and forth and trying to calm my mom down. Yes, my mother is a die-hard Redskin fan, die-hard Washington fan. But she does get a little on the edge and goes over. So I got to pull it, I got to talk her back from the edge from jumping off from time to time. So keep telling her, hey, Mom, it's week 1. Chill out, give them time, have faith, and we see what the result was. So, like I said, Rams, Eagles. Look, Malcolm Brown, I'm not going to crown him the real deal just yet, but he's looking really good. If you have a roster spot open and you want to go stash him, by all means, go out and get Malcolm Brown, stash him on your roster. If you've got somebody who's hurt, put him on your IR, go get Malcolm Brown to fill that roster spot and see what happens, okay? If you've got somebody that goes down, like if, let's say, you had Marlon Mack. If you drafted Marlon Mack, you probably, the rest of your league probably passed on Malcolm Brown. So Marlon Mack is out for the year, torn Achilles. Hate to see that. Any Jonathan Taylor owners, you are loving that, not the fact that somebody got hurt, but the fact that he has opportunity now earlier rather than later to pay off for your fantasy team, okay? One note of injury before we get into the league, and we're going to look at the injury list. Philip Lindsay is supposed to have an MRI this week, and that's going to be something to monitor. If you were a Melvin Gordon fan, once again, and I didn't plan this, but my boy Chris, he's got Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon paid off for him, got him over the top for Monday night, and helped win him his week. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into my league here, the Academy grads. So we see this is, I work off of the NFL Fantasy app, and we're going to go to the Game Center, and we're going to check out what we had going on for week 1. Okay. Week 1, you see I was going up against my boy D-Money. That's his team right there. We're going to scroll down. Let's hide this chart. Let's scroll down and see. Oh. Now the fantasy week has ended. Let's go ahead and refresh this and see if we can't get a little something going on here. Sorry for that, guys. Well, we're not up there just yet. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we see the box score. Oh, the recap wasn't ready. My bad. Sorry about that. So we see the box scores here. He had Josh Allen, which he got in the auto draft, if I'm not mistaken, because he'd actually drafted Kirk Cousins, but he started wisely Josh Allen against the aforementioned Jets. Got him 32 points, almost did as well as Lamar Jackson, almost. And we see the next one, he had Zeke. He took Zeke as his #1 overall pick. So props to my boy D-Money. Listening and learning, did not take Drew Brees with his first overall pick this year. Good job. Raheem Mostert and Zeke pretty much broke even. Now, I had Saquon Barkley. That was my #1 pick, and I was not really thrilled with his performance. We're going to pull this up, and we're going to take a look. Like I said, he's got Poor's offensive line in here. This is one of the what they call an outlier performance for Saquon, okay? He was going up against a really good Pittsburgh defense. They really didn't hide the run well. If you watch this game, you could pretty much sit in your living room and tell when they were going to run the ball or when they were going to pass the ball. DJ Chark was another one. This is a case of not having a preseason and not knowing who is clicking with who in camp. So there was a couple of guys from Jacksonville that clicked with Gardner Minshew other than DJ Chark. But I do expect DJ Chark to be the #1 wide receiver. But the wide receiving core in Jacksonville is something to keep an eye on. But it's also something to not shy away from if you have DJ Chark. Simply because they're going to be in what's called a negative game script most of the time. Their defense is horrible. Philip Rivers just had an off week. He still threw for 363 yards and just 1 touchdown. But once he gets clicking, he'll be fine. But still, a defense that gives up 363 yards and they're still able to win. That tells you that their offense is clicking all around, and they really don't have any kind of run game to speak of in Jacksonville. We see Terry McLaurin. He had kind of a disappointing week for me personally, but we're going to see. He gets Arizona next, and we know that Arizona can put up buku points, so Washington is probably going to be in negative game script yet again, just because I don't think that Washington can handle the amount of talent that they have, the amount of targets that they have in Arizona, and it's going to be a rough week for them, but it could be a very good week for Terry McLaurin in fantasy. Now, Calvin Ridley. Look, I preached on this show time and time again that Calvin Ridley was going to break out. And what does he do? 130 receiving yards, 2 TDs for 34, almost 35 points, okay? That was absolutely incredible. It was phenomenal, okay? Hashtag phenomenal. To see him going against a Seattle defense with the way that Jamal Adams was flying around the field, wreaking havoc, for Matt Ryan to even get that many points to Ridley and to Julio, that was just something to see. So we scroll down here a little bit more. We see Travis Kelce versus Eric Ebron. Look, Big Ben was back in force. Absolutely love that game from Big Ben, and the 3 TDs paid off in my other league that we're going to take a look at here in a minute. By the way, just so you know, this isn't a one-type deal thing. I actually finished first in this league and in my other league, Listener League for 103.7 The Game here in Lafayette, Louisiana. So I kind of know a little bit about what I'm talking about. If you guys need help, reach out to me. If you're in my league, don't worry. I will still give you the same advice I would give for anyone else who's reaching out to me. My boy Pez knows I give good advice, so I've helped him a couple of times. If you're listening, Pez, give me a what's up on Twitter at FantasyDean20, and don't forget to subscribe down the bottom. Subscribe, like, and share for me. And put this out. If you know anybody who has a fantasy team and they need a little help, like my boy Luke, who is in our team, who we're going to go over here in just a second. We had Juju Smith-Schuster, almost 25 points. Loved seeing that from him. So he is back. He is proving that he is still the #1 receiving target in Pittsburgh. Of course, my Ravens, 15 points. That was great. The Eagles defense, they started out strong, but they finished with only 3 points. That's kind of what killed D-Money, along with a subpar performance from A.J. Brown. Don't hang your head. Remember, Tennessee is a run first team, so you're not going to get a whole lot of points. He's going to have those big bursts. And having him in the flex position, if you think that it's a negative game script, that's the place to put him. And keep an eye on him. If he's not doing anything for you by week 4, I would look to trade him. Even if he has that one big blow-up game, if he's had 3 bad ones, he might be somebody that someone else is willing to take a chance on, and maybe you could go out and get a better selection, a more stable, dependable selection. And this is what we try to look at, and this is what I talk about when I talk about environmental roster management. That's looking at the environment around the player, not just the stats that they put out. Look at who they went up against. Look at why they were getting so many targets. Was someone hurt? Was the primary receiver for that team gone for that week? These are things to look at and things to think about when you're making your decisions on who to go after on the waiver wire, who to go after in a trade scenario. Okay? Let's look down at the bench real quick. Not a whole lot of points left on the bench. We see Kirk Cousins there with 25, but like I said, Josh Allen was the better choice. Chase Edmonds with Arizona, that's a decent performance. We do see the Darius Slayton down here, 102 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. This could be the guy with Big Blue, with the Giants, okay? So D-Money, take a look at this. Make your adjustments, and next week, you might want to think about starting Darius Slayton, okay? So we're gonna review. We reviewed that for week 1 to show you guys what two really good teams. I mean, I put up 163. D-Money put up 141. D-Money actually finished 5th. He could have beat like half the league if he had played anyone else but me. So that's always a good thing to have in your back pocket, to know that week 1 you made good decisions. Your team may have fallen short in a couple of places that cost you the win, but you're seeing good, continual, repeatable stat lines from your players. So let's look at week 2. And we're going to go to the team that finished 2nd versus D-Money for this week. And let's break down them real quick. So once again, we see Josh Allen versus Miami. That's a great play. Kyler Murray versus Washington. That can be a great play as well. Kamara versus the Raiders. I don't know what to make of Kamara right now. I don't know what to make of the usage of him. Can he have those monster weeks? Of course he can, but are you going to get him on a consistent basis? The Zeke Elliott for D-Money. Look, you draft a guy in the 1st round, you're starting him, period, end of sentence. That's what's going on with Kamara. It's really hard to make that pick at the 1st round, at the 2nd or even 3rd round if you're looking at receivers and you go into the 4th. The top 4 rounds, if you draft a guy and you went running back, receiver, or any combination of that, it's hard to sit these guys if they had a bad week, because you look at them and you look at that big name and you look at the amount of draft capital that you paid to have to try to get these guys on your squad. If they have an off week, you can't just pitch them like they're a 10th round pick. So you got to look at the environment around them. As I said, environmental roster management, and look at what you can do to boost in other places. Now, the Calvin Ridley, I love the Calvin Ridley against Dallas for your wide receiver. Marvin Jones, look, Jones going against against Green Bay, that's going to be a good play. Keep an eye on Kenny Galladay's status, because he was actually out week 1 with an injury. If he comes back, that could actually be better for Marvin Jones. You're like, well, Dean, why? He's going to be taking away touches. No, he's going to be taking away pressure. Marvin Jones without Kenny Galladay turns into the number 1 option. Marvin Jones with Kenny Galladay turns into a number 2 receiver who they're not going to pressure as much. He's not going to see the double coverage. He's not going to see the attention from the defense. So Green Bay is going to put up numbers. We saw this last week. But their defense gave up 34 points. They let Adam Thielen just run all over them. So do they even have the coverage to cover Galladay and Jones? No. They've got to pick one or the other. And whoever they don't pick, that's who's going to burn them for that series. And then they'll switch. Then Matt Stafford will find someone else to go pick on. Okay, so I really like this lineup. Eric Ebron versus Denver. Look, Ebron was your choice in the draft. You're not going out and dropping him. You're not going to bench him. He's a tight end. You should not be rostering 2 top tight ends. If you want to roster somebody because you're trying to hold them for a trade, great. Okay, I believe my wife's team, she has Hayden Hurst, and she has Darren Waller. So if someone goes down, like George Kittle is down this week, okay, he's got a knee injury. His status is unclear for what's going on in week 2. So my boy Chris, if you're out there, hit Mandy up for for a trade, because she's willing to listen. So Ryan Suckup, look, we know that Tampa's going to score points. We know that they're going to at least get in field goal range. So there's a good play there. There's a good play with my boy Charles with the Slutty Mutts. I know he's had that name for a while. With Buckner for KC, you know they're going to score. They're going against the Rams. Look, is their front line good? Yes, but this is the Chiefs that we're talking about. Okay, nobody's going to contain this machine. It's just a scoring machine at this point. The defenses, look, D-Money, if you can go out there and get a better defense, I would definitely go ahead and get it. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, let's do this. We're going to give everybody a little help. We're going to look at the players available, look at our waiver wire, look at the defense, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about streaming. D-Money went out there and he got the Eagles defense because he didn't believe in Washington. Now, you see that Washington is up here. They scored as many points as the #1 Baltimore Ravens defense did in week 1. Are they going to do it again against Arizona? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to get that many points. And we see that what's left is not really a whole lot to talk about, but you're looking at what's going on matchup-wise, and that's all we're worried about. So the Seattle defense could be a very good play this week against New England. I do not recommend the Cowboys, and not just because I'm a Washington fan, but because they are dealing with a lot of injuries, okay? Now, the Rams are very interesting. I think that the Rams defense against a hurt Philly team could be a very good play. Even Cincinnati versus Cleveland. Look, it's a short week. Defenses usually are a little more together than offenses are at this point in time in the year. So if you want a good streamable defense for this week, if Cincinnati is available in your league, which they probably are, then go out, grab them. They're playing the Browns, so you definitely have some play there. And we see Tennessee right below that. Look, the Tennessee defense, they can contain Jacksonville, okay? I don't really see anyone else who I would take. Yeah, I wouldn't even take Atlanta's defense because I know that Dallas is going to put up points. Carolina's defense did kind of surprise me a little bit just for the simple fact that I thought it was going to be a little higher scoring of a game, and they're playing Tampa Bay. But I think that Tom's going to be upset. I think, we all know about his work ethic and that winning attitude that he has. So I think that the embarrassment that he suffered in week 1 against the Saints, I think he's going to take that and maybe, try to go off against Carolina. But I don't think that the Tampa Bay defense is going to be able to contain Teddy Bridgewater and Christian McCaffrey this week. So let's go ahead and look at Game Center again. Let's go down here. And we see Nyheim Hines on my boy Charles's roster. I'm loving that play, the Chris Carson play against New England. Look, Chris Carson looked like he was fine. Looked like the hip had no problems. He put up really good numbers. He rushed really well. They did incorporate Carlos Hyde a couple of times, but it was clearly the Chris Carson show. Mike Evans, look, Evans, Godwin, all those guys looked horrible against the Saints. But it was the Saints. This is one of those things where you paid a high price for Mike Evans. You don't want to set him. And you've got Devontae Adams against Detroit. So the risk there, this is going to be a really good matchup to watch, and we'll see how this plays out next week when we review this. This will be the matchup that we review in our next Tuesday's edition after everything is said and done. because we've got Calvin Ridley and Devontae Adams going against each other. We got Zeke and Chris Carson going against each other. We see the Marvin Jones versus Mike Evans and Aaron Jones versus Alvin Kamara. Okay, I want to see how that plays out and see how that goes. The A.J. Brown against Jacksonville, that's a really interesting matchup. And see how Nyheim Hines is used this week against Minnesota. See if he's clicking and if he's going to be that Austin Eckler type. We'll see if D-Money takes my advice and goes out and gets a different defense. We know that Charles is going to stay with the Niners defense against the Jets. If he doesn't, Charles, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Now, we take a look at the bench, see if there's anybody here that we might want to plug in. Sammy Watkins was left on his bench last week, and this week they get the Chargers. So that might be something where you plug Sammy Watkins in place of A.J. Brown. But I don't think that I can legitimately tell him to plug Sammy Watkins in for either one of his receivers. Philip Lindsay, we saw, was injured. He's listed as questionable right now. That might change after the MRI. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And I really don't see – I think Darius Slayton against Chicago would be a good play. So if you're looking – D-Money, if you're looking to replace A.J. Brown, if you want to kind of step back, and this is the thing about having depth on your roster, and this is what I preached about during the draft season, was waiting on a quarterback, waiting on your tight end, and building depth at receiver and at running back. And this is where it pays off, where you have guys who you can plug in if they're having an off week, if they have a bad matchup, that you can confidently put in there. So A.J. Brown might not be the best start for him this week. He is an absolutely phenomenal receiver, second-year receiver. He's probably a year away from breaking out. But I think Darius Slayton, after what we saw, even from a bad showing from Daniel Jones against a really good Pittsburgh defense, I think that this week we see Darius Slayton, a little far, going against Chicago defense that I really don't have that much confidence in. We saw Mitch Trubisky go out there and just ball out. So he probably saved himself another couple of weeks at least at starter. So my bold prediction of him being benched by week 4 is probably not going to come true. It'll probably be week 6 or 7 if he does not keep this up. He has got to keep this up, regardless of whether he does or not. It's going to be good news for Allen Robinson owners and Anthony Miller owners, of which I am both. Okay. So I love seeing that, and it looks like Charles has an extra bench spot, so he can go out there and get one of those waiver wire pickups that I was talking about. Maybe Malcolm Brown, never know. Jalen Richard, look, I would definitely drop him. Tyler Boyd, if you believe in Boyd, I would probably go ahead with Boyd instead of Evans in this case, just for the simple fact that you don't know what you're getting out of Tom Brady just yet. If Evans blows up, has a great game, great. But I think Tyler Boyd against the Browns is a much better play. So, Charles, if you're listening to this, you take my advice. D-Money, if you're listening to this, sorry. Got to tell it like it is, my man. So both of y'all got my number. Hit me up if you want. And both you guys got my Twitter account. So hit me up at FantasyDean20 on Twitter with any questions or suggestions about the show. I'd appreciate it. So let's go ahead and look at players. And we're going to look at the injury list here for just a second. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Okay. And we'll look at all players, not just mine. We see Miles Sanders there on my team. So, go team by team here, guys. See if we can Yeah, let's go all. So we look down here. On the surface, I really don't see anything of any fantasy value just yet. David Njoku, there's one that jumps out at you. And Blake Jarwin, look, Cowboys fans, I feel your pain. I'm sorry, and it's not. I'm not being facetious here. I'm being truthful and honest and heartfelt. Blake Jarwin was a really good option at tight end, but he is out for the season. Okay. And we see David Njoku. He's on IR now. He's got a knee injury. So if you had David Njoku and you were thinking about starting him, you need to go look right now at the available tight ends. And we'll go ahead and take a look at those in just a second because we got 2 tight ends right now. We see questionable Philip Lindsay. We talked about that. Courtland Sutton, he's still questionable. I'll go down here and click on this and see what the latest is for Courtland Sutton. He's listed as inactive Monday against the Titans. So went to the locker room shortly thereafter, an MRI. He's got an AC joint sprain in his right shoulder, which didn't allow him to practice on Friday or Saturday. So this is something that we're going to need to monitor. He has not been put on IR. He has just been listed as questionable. So this is going to be something to keep an eye on. Bo Scarborough, running back. Nick Baldwin is on IR for the Lions. Hunter Bryant, and that's for the Lions. Now, on a Lions note, look, guys, Adrian Peterson looked absolutely awesome in his Lions debut, and you guys know I got much love for AP. Released by my Washington team and signed immediately by what I thought was a really crowded backfield in Detroit, but it's kind of thinned out a little bit here. And we see Kenny Golladay here with the Lions too. He's listed as questionable. So that's going to be something that we're going to need to keep an eye on. Devin Funchess, he opted out, so we don't have to worry about that. See, Duke Johnson, he's listed as questionable. That is good news for all David Johnson owners like me for my other league. And for Charles in our league. Marlon Mack ruled out for the season, guys. And like I said, this was really good news for Jonathan Taylor owners, really bad news for Marlon Mack owners, but it does give you an opportunity to go out. You can drop Marlon Mack, go out and pick up Malcolm Brown, and you might not even miss a beat. You might pick up a little something extra. See a couple of, reserve guys here. Gerald Everett, this is something that we didn't talk about real quick. Gerald Everett listed as questionable for the Rams. What does that mean? That means that Tyler Higbee could be thrust into a really prominent starting role like he had the last 5 weeks of the season. If you own Tyler Higbee last season, as my wife did, my wife Mandy, she owned Tyler Higbee, and that drove her into the playoffs. He was absolute fantasy beast last year. Let's keep going down here. Tyrell Williams is still on IR, so that bodes well. And he is the only wide receiver for the Raiders in Vegas that show up on the injury report. But you want to keep an eye out because toward the end of the week, Friday, unless you have a Brown or a Bengal playing, you're going to want to look at the injury report again on Friday and see who's falling where, okay? Because Henry Ruggs did tweak his ankle, I believe, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on, see how his status is going to be. Devontae Parker listed as questionable. That's going to be another one that we're going to need to keep a look at, keep an eye on, and see how he goes. Let's keep going down the IR. We see a slew of opted out Patriots. We also see Damon Harris is on IR. So we're not really sure when he's coming back. But if you have the extra spot to spare, go ahead, pick up Damon Harris, because when he comes back, he might be a little something special. And that might be a really sneaky stash for you to go into the second half of the season with, okay? We see Michael Thomas here listed as questionable. And like I said, Michael Thomas was something that he just had a really bad week. Him and Mike Evans, with both the Mikes, had a bad week. We see Golden Tate, and Golden Tate's going to be something that you need to keep an eye on if you are a Darius Slayton owner like my boy D Money. If he does not come back, if he is still held out for week 2, Darius Slayton is definitely going to be a must start for your team, okay? Yeah, we see Joey Flacco is out for the season. Le'Veon Bell, this is another one. A lot of guys went high on Le'Veon Bell, and he is listed as questionable. Even his coach, the infamous Adam Gase, came out and said that he felt bad putting him in after he got hurt. He said he could, reports right now saying that it could be a couple of weeks. So Le'Veon Bell, something to keep an eye on. If you are a Le'Veon Bell owner, you need to be looking on the waiver wire right now. Waivers went live for us at 8 o'clock Tuesday morning. Mandy's team has already picked up Robbie Anderson. I went out and I dropped Matt Stafford. I know I talked a lot from my boy Matt, but Big Ben fell through the cracks. He fell to the waiver wire, and he putting up that kind of performance. I can't pass him up even though I have Lamar Jackson. Jackson's going to run into a rough start. So it's good to have that caliber of quarterback in your back pocket to play. We look down here. Let's see. Miles Sanders. Of course, we mentioned that on my team. I'm just basically stashing him right now, guys, and seeing how things play out. Boston Scott left the game as well. We see Alshon Jeffries. We don't know when he's going to be back. He's listed as questionable right now. James Conner. This is another guy. I actually went out and picked up Benny Snell. So Benny Snell is now on my roster as well. He could be the man in Pittsburgh. We're going to keep an eye on James Conner's condition and see how he's doing. Let's see what the latest is here on Tuesday. He avoided, so apparently he avoided a high ankle sprain, which is good. He's supposed to be going for further evaluation today. So this is one that we're going to keep an eye on, and we're going to revisit this on Friday. So keep an eye. I'll put it out on Twitter at FantasyDean20. Make sure that you go and follow me on Twitter. Here's a big one. And no, I'm not talking about Chris Thompson. I'm talking about George Kittle. So the latest on George Kittle is that he has been diagnosed with a sprained left knee following the loss to the Cardinals. Let's see. He did go back to the locker room before halftime, and my boy Chris still pulled out a win thanks to Melvin Gordon. So we're doing a wait and see how he feels on Wednesday. So, again, this is going to be another one that we're going to revisit on Friday. So something to keep an eye on, guys. Rashad Penny is on the PUP list. Josh Gordon will not be coming back until week 8. And I don't see – yep. So that's it for the fantasy injury report here on Fantasy Football Academy 2020. Guys, look, if you all have questions, let's go ahead and stop this. Okay, guys. So if you guys have questions about your injury report, about who to go pick up, who to target, maybe you have somebody who you are just stashing on your roster, you really don't have a use for, but you know somebody in your league wants that guy. So what do you do? Go offer him. See what you can get. See what do you need on your roster? Let me know down at the bottom. Leave a comment for me on Twitter. Subscribe, like, share for me. Go follow me on Twitter at FantasyDean20. And let's go ahead. We'll show you real quick my other league. Oh, not that one. Here we go. So let's look at this. Sorry, guys. I got way too many things pulled up here. Okay, so let's go. Here we are. This is my listener league, not my league of record. Go for the league overview, and you guys are going to see that I'm actually pretty good at this fantasy football thing. Under the Dome with Clint Domain. Look, if you don't go follow Clint Domain, what are you doing? Guys, go follow him. He's on Twitter at Clint Domain. Go check him out. You see that who scored the most points? That's right, the Dean. Guys, they don't call me the Dean for nothing. You guys thought I didn't know what I was talking about. 25 years of experience. And let's check it out and see who I did it with. I haven't made any tweaks to my lineup, guys. So we see Big Ben, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Raheem Mostert. Oh, I'm sorry, I did. I did not start Kareem Hunt last week. I did have David Johnson in. So David Johnson was in my my starting lineup, but he's on my bench because of the negative game script that's going to, or the negative matchup that's going to be happening this week against Pittsburgh. Okay, I'm sorry, against Baltimore. Kareem Hunt, I love that. Look, if you were a Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt owner, you were extremely disappointed by the output that they had. Look, this week against the Bengals, I'm looking for them to be absolutely off the chain. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. You guys see Marvin Jones Jr. I actually slid him in there in place of Deontay Johnson because he was a little dinged up. And I just, I knew Marvin Jones was going to do a little something because Kenny Golladay was down. So I'm going to leave him in there against Green Bay. Like I said before, if Galladay's not there, fine. If he is there, even better. Just some things that, little tidbits I can throw out there to you. Zane Gonzalez, you guys know I love my boy Zane. And my defense was Tennessee. Now, I am going to go look and see what matchups a little later, what matchups are going to be going good for me there. Let me stop share. Guys, I've shown you two examples. Got my league of record, got my listener league, number one in both. Look, I'm not here to toot my own horn. The results speak for themselves. So if you need help in fantasy football, if you're new, which a lot of you are, okay? If you're watching this show, this is built for you guys, okay? I'm here for you. I'm here to help. I'm trying to show you guys how to be better fantasy owners, okay? Be better fantasy players. Guys, hit me up down at the bottom. Subscribe, like, and share for me. Leave a comment, and follow me on Twitter at FantasyDean20. Guys, come check me out, and I'll help you get to where you want to be. For the Fantasy Football Academy 2020 here on YouTube, I've been the Dean, live from Cajun Fitness in rain. Guys, take it easy, and remember, take care of yourself. Mask up if you're going out. Take care of each other, guys. Later.